The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. We're pleased to connect you today with two members of the General Assembly, Delegate Joanne Ward. Good to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. Senator Monty Mason. Good to see you, sir.
Nice to see you, Woody. Thanks for having me, sir.
Congratulations on getting into the state senate. Tell us how it's going over there.
Thank you very much. It's fun. It's getting used to a little different procedural roles and body, but I'm enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to work with my new colleagues and hopefully do some good things.
So committee assignments have yet to be made, I understand.
We get a little quirk in the system. You know, two of us, Lionel Spruill and I, were especially elected in the November election, but there were two elections with Mark Peake and Jennifer McClellan the day before session. And so there's still a little bit of wrangling going on, I think, among some of the committee chairs as far as who to assign. It doesn't seem to have much to do with the four of us. But so it's taking a little longer than we expected. And hopefully today we'll find out what they'll be and can go ahead and get to work in the committee structure.
So your responsibility has expanded, at least in terms of the number of constituents. I think you have about 200,000 now.
That's right, up from about 85,000, so not quite 3x. But there was a significant overlap. As you know, I succeed my good friend, the late Senator John Miller, who we all admired and respected, and he was so good to me. So I had worked very closely with him, and much of Newport News was in my district, but I'm really fortunate to pick up parts of Hampton and one little piece of Suffolk. And it's great for me because Joanne and I have worked together, and I've really looked to her for advice in my 3 years in the House of Delegates in the past.
Great. And Delegate Ward, you have some choice committee assignments. Talk to us about them.
Yes, I do. They're pretty good for me not to have chosen them, but I am on transportation, general laws, and commerce and labor. And I'm the ranking Democrat on all of those committees. And then I was recently assigned to the Rules Committee. Now that's exciting. Had no idea what the Rules Committee did, and now I do. And it looks like it's going to be quite interesting.
For those who may not know, what does it mean to be the ranking member on a committee?
It means that I have served the longest on that committee as a Democrat. And that's just what it means. So with that longevity or that seniority, a lot of time people look to you for your guidance and your suggestions. Sometimes they follow you on your vote because they assume you know more than they know.
Well, it's a well-deserved leadership position, I think, for you. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your district and how things are going there.
I represent the majority of the city of Hampton. I like to say that I represent all of the inner parts and the very tip ends, Fox Hill, and perhaps Bethel. I do not represent, but everything in between. And things are going relatively well.
We were talking earlier about a history that you just learned and I just learned. That's just been made into a movie. Talk to us about that.
So exciting. Hidden Figures with Dr. Katherine Johnson right from Hampton. And if you watch the movie, it's amazing to see that history that we are living with right now. I have met her. I have a resolution that has been filed to honor her. And I'm trying to see if we can't arrange for a reception for her in the governor's mansion. She is now 97 years old. And what she did for not only the Commonwealth, but the entire space program is something that needs to be celebrated.
Well,
And
tell us what she did. I don't know that many people know that.
okay, she, along with a lot of other African American women, were called computers. They sat in a room and they did the math for NASA to make sure that our space program was operating correctly and safely. And when she was asked to move up, um, she also was the one that was asked by John Glenn to go back and look at those figures, check the computer's computation, because he trusted her that much with his
Wow.
life.
Wow.
And she did just a fantastic job. But woven into the story, you could see how she dealt with the discrimination, all the women, how they dealt with discrimination, and they still excelled. And I'm
That's
so
great.
proud of them. I really am.
Great. And Senator, part of your district, of course, includes Williamsburg, and there's a lot of history there as well.
It does. It does. It reminds me of a neighbor of mine that said that she was leaning in long before they ever wrote a book about it, right? And it's just a great story that it was based upon intellect and performance and nothing else, not race, creed, color, gender, nothing had to do with other than the brains behind making sure things worked. And you're right, Williamsburg, Jamestown, Yorktown, the historic triangle. And, you know, and one thing we're really trying to do, it's really important for us to speak to the Virginia Peninsula. Because we just passed a bill on the Senate side yesterday with Senator Mamie Locke to restructure the Fort Monroe board. Because Fort Monroe, we're doing a lot of great things,
Right.
and in anticipation of the 400th anniversary, 2019, of the first meeting of the House of Burgesses, the first women to come to the colonies, the first African Americans to come to the colonies, and Fort Monroe,
Right.
we really need to link all of these wonderful historic assets together to make sure we capitalize, telling our story, the complete story, the good parts of the story, the bad parts of the story, the parts that we continue to overcome, but also share with the rest of the country and the world that the Virginia Peninsula is a place that you need to come and you need to learn and be a part of, to see that not only is it great history, but it's really thriving and a part of today's story.
And of course, we all still have a lot to overcome, especially in terms of voting rights.
Absolutely.
And I know you have some legislation dealing with that. Talk to us about it.
A lot of us have worked for a number of years, and this is really one step in carrying on the work that Senator John Miller did. Each year, he and I were on the regional board for One Virginia 2021, which is driving towards a referendum for voters, giving them the opportunity to vote on nonpartisan redistricting. Senator Miller and I have represented a great deal of seniors in our district, and so giving no-fault absentee to people over 65. And the First Lady, who has just been, the governor's got boundless energy, but the First Lady has worked so hard during this administration towards things, making sure children are fed.
Right.
But this year she's helping us with expanding the absentee voting opportunity. She had 5 children under the age of 10 at one point. Stop and think about that one, Woody. So giving the ability for people to absentee vote if they are responsible for child care. Currently in the law, you can absentee if you're taking care of a senior that you're related to. Well, with the aging of America, we have a lot of caregivers taking care of elderly people. So we're trying to expand it to all caregivers, not just related. And then finally, reliable transportation. The Census Bureau said in 2012, 6% of people eligible to vote were unable to do so because of lack of reliable transportation. So those are the 3. The other 2 are kind of articles of faith for us, trying to constantly work to expand the vote and increase opportunities for people to vote. But those 3 in the absentee world, we hope are just practical applications that we can move through and, again, make people that have obligations, jobs, and responsibilities that we all know of, that we're all used to, more able to come in and take care of getting their vote
Sure.
cast.
And I'm sure that's just as important to you and your constituents.
Yes, it is. And I filed similar legislation also to call for a referendum, non-binding, but at least let's let the citizens weigh in so that the legislators will understand what the thoughts truly are of the people that they represent.
Yeah, I think it's been a very difficult challenge to convince members of the General Assembly to give up their authority to draw these lines, so to speak. Anytime you're taking power away from anybody, it's just real difficult. So sometimes you have to force it. And hopefully the voice of the voters will have a major impact in doing that. And of course, we've had a lot of litigation in the Commonwealth around redistricting. As a matter of fact, one of your former colleagues is now a member of Congress because boundaries were redrawn. Talk to us about the real needs of redistricting from your perspective, Delegate Ward.
Well, you want to make sure that the people are truly selecting their legislator and not the legislator sitting there selecting who their constituents will be. And sometimes that happens. And as we have computers and we're becoming more advanced, you can really draw the map almost around streets, looking at the way a neighborhood voted, and you can take them completely out of your district because a whole block voted a certain way. And that's just going too far now. It's just going too far, and we need to allow the constituents or the citizens to really elect their own person instead of us sitting there drawing the lines.
And I take it will make a lot of races much more competitive than they are now.
No doubt, and they should. And when I was in the House of Delegates, I was often introduced as one of the 7 or 8 competitive districts in the House out of 100. And so, you know, you've seen the Supreme Court rule on the congressional suit. Now there's a suit based on the same situation there for the House of Delegates, and one Virginia 2021 also has a suit in state courts speaking to the constitutionality of compact and contiguous. So if you look at some of these districts, they resemble, you know, one of the flying birds, or they, you know, do like this, and instead of being more, because as Joanne said, they are drawn with highly technical computer software. And but it's important to make the point that it's not one party or the other. When I was growing up, the Democrats were in control and did this, and now the Republicans are in control. So your point's well taken, Woody, that when you have the legislative authority, it's a difficult thing to give up, and that's probably why we have to look to the courts of the people.
Sure. Delegate Ward, you've been an educator in your past, and I know you're still trying to educate people.
Right.
Now you've got a bill dealing with driver education. What's that all about?
Okay. I think most of us as parents have had a conversation with our children when they begin to drive to tell them what to do when they are pulled over by law enforcement. I know I did with my sons. And now I heard my son telling his son, who's now 17, what to do. And I thought, what do other parents say? And I looked online, and if you go to YouTube or just Google it, you're going to have so many different ideas on what to do if you're ever pulled over by law enforcement. So I went to the state code to see what the state curriculum in the driver's education program was, and I saw the things that they taught. And they taught about aggressive driving. They talked about making sure you're not texting and driving and drinking and those types of things, even on organ donation, but nothing about the interaction with police officers. And I thought, this is major. We need to do something. So the legislation does not call for exactly what that protocol is going to be, but that there will be, and it will be a part of the curriculum. What my hope is, though not a part of the bill, is law enforcement officers, along with stakeholders, ACLU, would all get together and agree upon this is what the law enforcer will do when they have pulled over a car, and this is what that student or that young person or that driver is expected to do. And I'm hoping that with that, everyone would be on the same page, and it would reduce some apprehension, some anxiety, and a minor traffic stop will not become a major situation. And I'm hoping that that is going to pass.
Sure. So what committee has this bill been assigned to?
I noticed it's been assigned to education.
Oh, interesting. Well,
Yeah,
good,
that's what
good,
I thought too.
good.
I wasn't.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
Senator Mason, we were talking earlier, and you remarked that at least in some jurisdictions, law enforcement is attempting to depersonalize these kinds of stops. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, it's important to note that the vast majority of these stops go very well. And so Juwan's bill is just a common sense way to teach people from the start how to make sure that there's not a problem with a typical traffic stop. That law enforcement officers and agencies on the peninsula have spoken to us about their efforts to not say, do you know what you did? Do you know why I stopped you? You know, and they say, hey, sir, I noticed the vehicle came to a stop sign and the vehicle did not complete a stop. Is there any reason that this vehicle had to move? You know, so they just
Right.
try to make sure it's not, I'm coming after you. It's, I observed a violation from this vehicle, and here's why I've stopped you to address it.
Right, right. You've also been active over the years on behalf of senior citizens, especially those who are taken advantage of financially.
Yes, sir.
What's going on in that arena now?
Again, we're seeing many issues with the graying of America. And we suggest that over a third of Virginia by 2030 will be over 65. And now that in parts of my district, that's 33% today.
That high?
So I've always had a very high senior population, which has some incredibly positive things. I mean, their past, their histories, and what they bring to volunteers and what they bring to businesses, schools in our community. So it's a great positive. But there are a lot of myriad of issues we have to deal with as well. Chris Peace and I co-sponsored last year a suggestion to look at financial abuse of seniors and taking advantage of seniors. And so one thing that came from the report is it's widely underreported, largely because seniors are embarrassed that it happened to them. Mm-hmm. It's often a family member that may have taken advantage of them, and so they don't want to get their family member in trouble. Mm-hmm. But then we're also seeing caregivers taking advantage of folks. And so I've teamed up with David Yancey in Newport News. We worked together on things, and this was actually his bill that I'm going to work with on the Senate side. And he has one of mine on cybersecurity in the House side, working together to try to come up with, the code section says mental incapacity, and we're trying to broaden it and saying incapacity that could be mental incapacity, developmental discapacity, or advanced age. So instead of putting a number on it, it's just if you were taking advantage of because of your advanced age and your inability to comprehend the financial structure of what's going on around you, we're trying to put some teeth in the law to protect the seniors.
So what kinds of protections are included?
Anything that would be, it's largely financial. It's
Okay.
largely if you are responsible for or helping someone
I
with
see.
so it could be anything from the transfer of property to the movement of money to the acquisition of, because what you see is all of a sudden over a period of time, sometimes seniors will be taken advantage of over a long period. And it'll add up to a significant amount of money, and someone else, a new set of eyes, comes in and looks and says, well, what are we doing here? And the seniors say, oh, we've been doing this for the last 6 months. And, maybe under false pretense or just taking advantage of someone who may not have the wherewithal at this point to be making those decisions.
Yes. Delegate Ward, I noticed in the State of the State address that the governor provided us last week, he expressed disappointment in the fact that state employees, including teachers, would not be getting a raise due to the deficit, but he hoped that there would be a potential for a bonus for those state employees and teachers. How do you think that's going to work out?
I'm sure anyone appreciates any additional money, but that is not what they were expecting. And not just teachers. As a matter
Right.
of fact, I just had my office full of correction officers, and they're going to be impacted by that also. And just listening to some of the stories, not just teachers, correction officers, and what they deal with on a regular basis. These are jobs that no one else wants, and they do it. And just like with teachers, it's hard to retain good teachers.
Sure.
It's hard to retain good correction officers. We are doing an exit interview. We have a list of questions for teachers now to find out why they are leaving. A lot of people are saying, some legislators, female dominated, they're doing it to follow their families have children, but that's not it. You know, teachers are saying something else. And until we have that study, for them to actually be able to say, it's financial, we're not paid fairly, all of the other requirements that's on us, we are not able to really teach,
Right.
that we are now just testing our children, and those things lead to them just leaving. That retention is that constant leaving is costing the Commonwealth a lot of money because you have to train a new set of teachers constantly. And so I'm hoping that we can begin to set a budget that's going to truly be fair for those people, educators, correction officers, all of those who do some of the hardest work in the Commonwealth and get very, very little attention for it or respect or compensation for what they're doing.
Sure. So obviously a lot of negative churn in our state employee body. They're going to different jurisdictions because they can make more money, potentially better conditions of employment.
Yes.
A big hole to plug though, $1 billion. I think I saw a suggestion today there could be an amnesty that could garner some $53 million. I guess that's floating around as an idea.
Well, you know, a couple things there, Woody. First, if you're running a business and you have a $104 billion budget and you're 1.2 billion off, that's 1%. You can move things around. That's not too bad. But when you've allocated $1.2 billion to policy initiatives and then have to take them back,
Right.
then it's a lot more painful in the state budget situation. But from the, you know, she mentioned sheriffs, corrections officers, you know, the VEA, I was talking to the executive director of the VEA this summer, and we are proud when we're able to give 2% raises. He said teachers need at about 12% to get to the national median.
12%.
12%. So we've got a lot, and I've mentioned a couple of times the graying of America. So that happens in state government, that's happening in every industry. So as people retire, we have to have competitive salaries for the next generation to want to teach,
Right.
to want to come to state government and work. Because we're going to have quite a brain drain of people that have worked for 30, 40 years in industry. We need the next generation to come and work with them over the last 5, 10 years of their career so they can take the place and we can have the next generation of leaders. But this is a great example of how things evolve up here. I was approached in the halls about the study, the exit study of teachers leaving. And I've looked, and there's no one carrying it on the Senate side. So just this morning, I talked to the delegate carrying it on the House side.
Right.
And just this morning, I think I'm going to put that in on the Senate side just to make sure we've got it coming from both angles. Because this is just, Juwan nailed it.
Right.
We think we know why people leave,
Right.
but we really don't know until we hear from them. And we have them there, you know, certainly they would be willing to fill out a form, you know, just a quick survey
Sure.
at the end to help us understand what can we focus on.
Right.
Certainly money is the crux of it as a foundational issue, but there are a lot of other things
A lot of
that we can
things.
provide
Sure.
that will
Right.
make their success come more apparent.
Yeah, one of the items you mentioned, teaching to the test, and of course the standards of learning have been the
Right.
subject of debate for the last few sessions.
Yes.
And I'm sure that's something that puts a lot of pressure on teachers, there's no doubt. I guess we're starting to implement some of the reforms now. Talk to us about those reforms.
Yes, and I have been named to serve on the SOL Innovation Committee.
Okay.
And it's a room full of people that are all connected to education in some way. And so just throwing out every idea, it's fascinating. And just to see what comes out of that committee is amazing. It really is. But we have done a good job so far. We've reduced the number of tests. Teachers are constantly talking to me. They know I serve on the committee.
Sure.
And so they're letting me know about certain tests and how many questions that a student has to take, although a smaller number, only half, will be counted. So why do you make the children take? And I cannot remember the number. Why are they answering 15 questions when you're only going to count 5? And they're telling me the children are sitting there all day long, and that's just not right. And so we're trying to make some changes. As a matter of fact, Secretary of Education is pulling together another committee that's also talking about losing teachers, but also trying to attract some diversity in teaching. She wants to know, how do we attract minority teachers into the profession, because the student body is changing.
Right, right.
And so I think they're doing a good job on trying to address some of the issues that we have been talking about.
You understand the standardization. You understand the need to determine if all the children are at grade level and are learning properly. But it's difficult, and we've got to figure out the flexibility.
Sure.
I just had a parent-teacher conference with my third grade daughter, who loves school. She does extremely well. She bombed one of her tests. So who knows what happened that Monday? You know, who
Right,
knows what
right.
the story was? And so as long as we have the flexibility to understand, I told the teacher, if I saw multiple examples of this, I'd be concerned. I see one example,
Right.
hey, it could have
Right.
been a tough day.
Right.
That's why I was excited about the expedited retakes.
There you go.
And I was explaining to someone else, because they thought perhaps that's not fair to give them a second chance. And I thought on any given day, none of us are exactly the same and not at our peak. And so let's give that same opportunity to students, give them a second chance to take it again. And with that, they have seen the pass rates increasing just because they allowed children an opportunity, an expedited retake, instead of waiting until another year,
Right.
but they
Right.
can take it in the next couple of days.
Flexibility. That's great.
We've got less than a minute and a half left, but I want you to talk about computer trespass and
Oh.
cybersecurity.
So we just came from a Veterans Caucus briefing where Virginia is going to have the cybersecurity command for the nation. And so just a huge opportunity. The governor is the cybersecurity governor.
Yes.
So he's been a leader in this. The Virginia Peninsula has a great wealth of knowledge and ability here. And so I'm tackling it from the penalty phase, but at the same time, we're trying to make Thomas Nelson Community College a cybersecurity center of excellence. So it's a 21st century New Virginia economy focus. It's not going away. They're high-paying jobs. So we've got the challenges of combating the attacks, but we've got a whole opportunity here to breed and to develop a generation of people and adapt people to these jobs that we need that are extremely high-paying.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, as I recall, a portion of the governor's remarks were dedicated to parents to let them know there are very high-paying jobs out there for your children who have expertise in cybersecurity. I believe they started like $80,000. So that's a great thing for our economy. Thank you both for being here, Senator Mason,
Thank you.
Delegate Ward. Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.